Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Ankahi TV, where we bring you the untold stories behind the headlines. Today, you are about to meet a man who has scored above the clouds in defending Pakistan, and he has seen the enemy in his eyes and emerged victorious. He is a decorated fighter pilot, a war strategist, and one of our nation's foremost defense analysts. AirCommodore Khalid Chishti, Sitara-e-Imtiaz, Sitara-e-Basalt, served as a distinction in the Pakistan Air Force and has dedicated his life to understanding the art of modern warfare. In this exclusive conversation, we will uncover the inside story of the Pakistan recently secured a decisive victory over India. From downing 5 enemy aircraft to crippling communication through the cyber warfare to demonstrating and destroying key defense installation. We will be also hearing about the high-stake diplomacy that followed, including President Donald Trump's extraordinary claim that he personally intervened, that he has spoken over 30 times to stop this Indo-Pakistan war, and why India has remained silent so far. This is not to justify history. This is a story of whom modern warfare are fought and won. One story which is going to be disclosed to you is because we are fortunate that AirCommodore Chishti Sahab is here at Ankahi TV, and we hear straight from the man who knows the truth from the command center from Pakistan. We welcome Air Chishti Sahab to our studios, and I want to ask you that there is your long history of Air Force in Pakistan. I want to share with our viewers. Tell us about this recent war in India. What is the claims of India and Pakistan, and how did military leadership of Pakistan prepare to encounter this huge war and victory?
Dr. Asaf Qadeer Sahab, thank you very much for inviting me all the way to Houston, and not only inviting but giving me the opportunity to talk to your viewers across the globe on the very subject which is very close to Pakistani's heart. It all started, we all know that. I'll just quickly recap the viewers who may be not very current on what went on in Pakistan and India. The Pahalgam on 23rd of April, this we called false flag operations on the Indian side was launched in the area of Pahalgam, which is in Indian-held Kashmir. India blamed Pakistan. Pakistan government continued to offer their unparalleled support for the investigation, the inquiry, but India never agreed. And obviously, the Indian Prime Minister and other political leaders threatened that we will teach lesson to Pakistan. And obviously, Pakistan was not in the offensive position, but was in defensive position. All the armed forces went on to the high alert, and especially, we all know that because of the nature of the air power, Pakistan Air Force has to be, or had to be, the first to be in the position to thwart any threat to Pakistan's sovereignty. And this is what happened. Pakistan Air Force went into the highest alert that I know, 6 to 8 hours within that time. PAF fighter jets were flying across Pakistan from the northern hills down towards the sea, and they were ready to waiting for any threat which was to come. The fight, obviously, what went on was without any warning. Obviously, the initiative lies with the aggressor always, as the Indians were on offense on the subject. So obviously, Pakistan Air Force was all the time ready to intervene, any kind of intervention into Pakistan. We all saw that what went on, and quickly let me recap. 30th of April 2025, Rafale aircraft, 4 of them close to Srinagar, tried to test Pakistan air defense system, but they were strongly, obviously, defended by not only the fighter jets flying in our own airspace, but the cyber command force also, which obviously degraded the situational awareness through spoofing, jamming, interrupting the communication. And two of the Rafale out of the 4 had to force land at Srinagar airport. And then went on, we saw 6th of the early morning, which is night between 6 and 7. And the Indian came in with the heavy fleet of about 90 aircraft heading towards Pakistan. Although they never crossed Pakistan border, but they stayed about 80 to 100 kilometers inside the border and launched off surface-to-air missile, what they presumably or allegedly called, they wanted to teach a lesson to Pakistan and knock out the so-called terrorist camps and the hideouts inside Pakistan. And Pakistan Air Force, as I said, was on the highest alert, went on into action, and we launched about 42 aircraft. And the combat, if you ask me details later on, we can talk about it. I'm just trying to cover the summary. The 42 aircraft went on to engage almost 90 aircraft, double the number. And all of the aircraft, flying almost 12:10 a.m., which is past midnight, were armed with beyond visual range missiles, which comes out to be more than 500 beyond visual range missile at past midnight. Was a very, very unusual, unparalleled in the history of any aviation. Because earlier the fights had been taken place between the combat aircraft, which were almost visually seeing each other. And this is a scenario, it's dark night, 125 aircraft approximately reported by CNN were in the air. The pilots were not looking at each other only through the scope. They knew each other's position and the combat capability and the maneuvering. And on 7th morning, Alhamdulillah, Pakistan Air Force shot down 7 aircraft, which plus a drone aircraft, which was a huge success, and without losing a single aeroplane. I was very fortunate that before the time, Pakistan Air Force had allowed me to interact with these pilots. Few weeks back before the actual war broke out, I was specially permitted to go to the Air Force base, which houses J-10C and J-17 Thunder aircraft. And I made a documentary on the subject, which I uploaded on my YouTube channel, which is under my name, Khalid Chishti. And I said in that documentary that Indians should not dare to challenge Pakistan Air Force capabilities or they'll be surprised. And Alhamdulillah, my words proved right. And actually, Pakistan Air Force taught them a lesson. Obviously, it was 7-0. Let me add another thing. Good news for Pakistani is that it is not 3 Rafale, but it is 4 Rafale, which, as I've confirmed before leaving for United States and Canada for these talks here, it's been confirmed that they've lost 4 aircraft. We have the tail numbers also. Rest is history. And then the last word on this is that Indian went down very silent on 8th and 9th in the air, but they launched surface to air and surface to ground, some weapons, and in that they fired some drones, obviously, which hit Pakistani territory. But on 9th night, India attacked 6 of our air bases, PF air bases, apart from attacking other targets. This was the time the PF had realized that we had to choose which way to go, and this is how they went in. On 10th morning, in 5 hours, PF bombed so heavily that the tonnage was more than what we had dropped on India in 17 days of 1965 war. And this is how the ceasefire took place. What you refer to, the Indians came running to the President Trump, and who has said it more than about 30 times that he was instrumental in stopping the war.
Commodore Khalid Chishti Saab, while you are talking about this Air Force war, the report confirmed that Pakistan Air Force downed 5 Indian crafts. Could you walk through us this aerial engagement, how this could happen?
Dr. Saab, this is a very strange fight in which, one, that it was being fought at night. All aircraft were equipped with beyond visual range missiles. This is the longest BVR kill in the history of mankind. Why? Because before that, in the Gulf War, American F-15C had shot down a MiG-25 at a range of about 140 kilometers. And the environment was that obviously the radars on the Iraqi side had been jammed. They were hardly effective. The aircraft were obsolete. They were about 40 years old. Now this is a unique combat in which the most modern aircraft are taking place. There are Rafale, 36 Rafale, which was inducted just about 5 years back. There were J-10Cs, which were just inducted 3 years back. And there are J-10C Block 3 aircraft, which has just come into service about 2 to 3 years back. So this was a fight which is uniquely is standing out as compared to the previous ones. The biggest challenge for any fighter pilot, Dr. Saab, in the air is whenever I'm told as a fighter pilot to go up in the mission, we are told that will it be a defensive mission or will it be an offensive mission? The nature of the mission is defined. This is another uniqueness of this mission, that the pilots who took off were briefed to be defensive because they were being attacked. The Indian aircraft, about, as I said, close to 90 aircraft heading towards Pakistan. So their task was to defend. But however, this mission in the air on the command of Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Zahir Ahmad Babar Sidhu, was converted from defensive to offensive mission, and he asked his pilots to shoot all aircraft which were intruding into Pakistan either by the aircraft or through the weapons. Because the PF had declared that we will take it as the same offense whether the aircraft come and violate themselves or they throw in the weapons into Pakistan airspace. So this is how PF pilots obviously had been trained. We can talk about it later. How was the training going on for last many years? And they, alhamdulillah, shot back obviously 7 aircraft, which is unparalleled, so unique, never in the history, in one combat. And the fight went on for 1 complete hour, which for beyond visual range missile is unparalleled anywhere. These fights are hardly spanning over a few minutes, 1 to 2, 3 or 4 minutes historically. But this tells you the level of preparedness on both sides, because as a fighter pilot, I respect Indian Air Force. Rafale aircraft is good. The pilots are professional. However, what they were missing, we can talk about it later, in what was the disconnect between them and what was the advantage that the PF had over them.
Well, while we are on this subject, AirCommodore Khalid Chishti, the question arises that what tactical or technological advantage did the Pakistan Air Force had over Indian Air Force in this Indian-Pakistan conflict?
You see, Dr. Saab, you will recall that never in the history we've had numerical advantage or even numerical parity with Indian Air Force, and we will never have. We do not want to have, because our design is to be defensive and not offensive. We've had historically less number, 65 war, 71 war, any time. How do we plug the gap? The numerical advantage, how do we outset it? Number one is through the passion, the motivation, the jazba that we call. Jazba Shahadat especially that we have. We want to be martyred in the name of God Almighty. And number two is the quality of training that we have. A better quality of training because we want to survive. Number three, and the most important, is that we always had the technological edge over Indians. We had no option but to have the technological superiority over them. And this is exactly what the PF did. And this time, things were different in few domains. Number one is that PF had gone into 19 new inductions in the last about 3.5 years. This was unparalleled. I respect Air Marshal Noor Khan, Air Marshal Asghar Khan, who were the fathers of Pakistan Air Force, all services chief who have contributed in their own capacity and according to their own vision. But the last 3 to 4 years, PF had gone into massive silent transformation in the history. Why? These 19 new inductions also included the Cyber Command Force, J-10C, JF-17 Thunder Block 3. So these are the technologies which gave a wonderful advantage to the PF. And now the last and the most important thing was the integration of these weapons. That means surface-to-air missiles were integrated, airborne early warnings were integrated, jammers were integrated, satellite and space pictures were integrated, and Cyber Command Force also came into as a support. So I do not call it, during the war, I used to call this is orchestration of the war. It is no more one aircraft going against one or 10 aircraft going at 10. It's a band of warriors which are going up in the air or sitting on the ground, sitting in a transport aircraft, sitting in a jammer aircraft, sitting in an air-to-air refueler, or watching space, or sitting through the computer screens and trying to do a soft kill through a cyber attack on the enemy. So this was an integration, I call it. All of them had one kill picture. Everybody knew that at the end of the day, how will we shoot the enemy? Who will deceive? Who will mislead? Who will give obnoxious calls? Who would give such calls which can mislead and disorientate their pilots and the controllers? Everyone was fighting as one team, because as I said, one kill picture, unless you have this kind of scenario and understanding, you cannot go and shoot the enemy. And probably this was the biggest difference between the Indian Air Force and the Pakistan Air Force.
Yeah, I mean, you beautifully have described them. Khalid Chishti Saab, a common man still cannot comprehend how come Pakistan can get air superiority so quickly. Can you share information for a common person to understand how this quickly Pakistan was able to have superiority in the air?
I think that's a wonderful question. Why? Because it does not sound logical, looking at the data. Dr. Saab, I had the privilege of visiting these air bases, and I had the privilege of visiting the Cyber Command before the war, a few months before the war. And when they briefed me, I could not believe that they'll be so lethal and so effective and so focused operations undertaken by these young men in uniform, in blue uniform. You see, this is the conviction. Pakistan Air Force pilots of J-10C had been training for anti-Rafale missions for last 3 years. They had been told that whenever there is a war likely to break out, the PF air chief had told them we need to get the Rafale first. And that's why you see that out of the 7 aircraft shot down, 4 are Rafale. Because the teams, the pilots, the integration, the air defense controller, the weapon, everybody had been briefed that Rafale is going to be the top priority for us. And they focused on the training. They gathered the data, they devised the tactics, they have all the methodology, how will they down it, and you saw that what has happened. And on top of that, another thing which is commendable on the part of the PF leadership, because the air chief had such a lot of trust in the people and the training, he did not ask them that they will seek permission to shoot the enemy. Traditionally, Dr. Saab, what happens is, as a fighter pilot, I used to go up in the air and I'm told when I lock the target, when I'm positioned to shoot the enemy aircraft, I need to seek permission from the ground, from the higher authorities, that I am in a position, am I clear to shoot? And the clearance comes from the ground and then I shoot, of course. This time, amazing thing happened. The air chief had told them at the takeoff point, when the aircraft were getting airborne, the instructions loud and clear came from the air chief that go on to this direction and clear to shoot. That means the pilots were not obliged to take permission while they were in a position to shoot and waste a couple of more seconds. And this is how the leadership has trust in the PF, on the pilots and the controllers and all obviously the team. Whenever I say pilots, it's a whole lot of people who are supporting them, starting with the technicians, the engineers, the electronic officers, and the people who maintain them. So that's called the trust in the team. Never ever the chief of the air staff, to my mind, doubted his capability in trusting them or his vision in trusting them, and obviously never thought that they will not live up to his expectations.
Khalid, let's talk about the keyboard warriors. Reportedly, they blocked and paralyzed Indian military communication. What exactly does that mean in an operational terms?
Dr. Saab, this is, let's take it May 2025. This was the time when Indian Defense Minister was holding a meeting in room 234, which is the Defense Ministry's room in which the briefing was going on. And the Defense Minister was asking his, obviously, services chiefs, how should we attack Pakistan and teach Pakistan a lesson? This is exactly the same time the PF cyber warriors were into actions, and those gentlemen sitting in room 234 on Indian part did not even know there is a silent storm heading towards them. And the silent storm consisted of was orchestrated by the Cyber Command Force of Pakistan Air Force, in which they almost neutralized and interrupted and blocked 966,000 networks. They interrupted the train network. They interrupted the electricity and grid stations. They interrupted the rail transport. They virtually disabled the running of the life. And after a few hours, the electricity was restored on the humanitarian ground, because that electricity obviously is also needed in the hospitals. And obviously for the safety of the passengers which were traveling, the trains could have collided because of lack of communication. So this was done. And this was not happening overnight, Dr. Saab, let me tell you. When I learned and I visited these warriors, and I have again visited them after the war, a day before coming to US and Canada, I had an honor to be given access to these people. And when I asked them, how did you do it? Because the war came just maximum of 2 weeks notice. And those young people, they were hardly 25 to 30 years of warriors. They told me, sir, we were doing the rehearsal, the data collection, the counter-attack tactics for last 3 years. We were just waiting for the orders from the command. The day We were told that you need to hit them. We were not double-minded. We were not confused. We did not have to do any homework. We did not have to reevaluate the decision. We had done the homework. We just needed to press the button and the things would go.
Chishti, what you have told me about the keyboard warriors, the question arises, how critical was cyber interference in determining the outcome of the war?
You see, Dr. Saab, like I said, that this is not one-man show. This is not what segment. This is not only the fighter pilot. These are not only the airborne early warnings. This is absolute teamwork. This is an aspect of the cyber command Indian probably least realized that this is coming against them. They had thought that it will be conventional war or a combination of conventional modern war in which the combat aircraft will take off. They will obviously shoot missile on each other and there will be some losses on each side. But the cyber command literally paralyzed their orientation. It lowered the situational awareness, what I call it. Situational awareness is while I'm sitting in your good home, I can see the lights, I can see the sofas, I can see the television, I can see the cameras. If you disorientate me for a while, confuse my judgment, disable my thought process and my thinking, I would start to lose my confidence. Where am I sitting? Which side is the sofa? Where is the camera? Will it be here? Am I supposed to be sitting here? You shatter my confidence. This is what the cyber command did. This is what they did, and they shattered the confidence because of the lack of information, the delay in the information, misleading information, all led to the Indians losing confidence in themselves. This is what happened.
Chishti Sahab, Pakistan successfully destroyed key Indian defense installations. Which targets were hit and why they were chosen?
Dr. Saab, PF has a very clearly laid out ladder of escalation targeting. That means if you want to stay at this level, PF would hit back at this level. If you take the level up, it'll hit it accordingly. Before the war, and a documentary that I made on my YouTube just 5 to 6 days before the war broke out, in that, if it's only a 5 minutes documentary, if you find time to see it, I had said that PF has drawn well thought out, calibrated targeting strategy. Do not be surprised. There will not be any calculation done during the war. They have already done the calculation. They have already done the prioritization. And this is what they exactly followed. What I'm trying to say, they do not strategize or do the targeting strategy during the war. If they say, if the enemy does this, we're going to do this. If the enemy does more, we'll do even more. If he does to that level, we will go up to that level. And this is exactly what happened. You saw that. Let me give you an example. On the 9th of May morning, the Indians hit 6 air bases of the PF. PF quickly responded. As I said, that in 5 hours, they dropped so much of tonnage because they had calculated the target. Especially, let me talk the last part in this question. PF had hit S-400. We can talk about it as a separate question if you have it. That radar was the eyes of India, basically. When they knocked out, it lost a huge lot of visibility into Pakistan airspace. And that shattered the confidence of the Indians, of course. That was a suicidal mission. That could have been one-way mission for the pilots who went in. I have met those people who did this. And I was pleasantly surprised at how successfully, how accurately they calculated this, all the data, they executed the mission, and alhamdulillah came back and landed safe.
You know, these strikes, were they primarily conducted through the air and missile technology, especially for S-400?
Yes, Dr. Saab. PF had been practicing their strategy that they knew that S-400 is a very dangerous missile. Let me explain to your viewers for simplicity. This is a radar or a missile weapons which locks the target at 600 kilometers and shoots at 400. S-400 digit in the number 400 means 400, no more targets. That will shoot any aircraft coming at 400 kilometers. That means it can see around 600 kilometers. It had a great range to penetrate into Pakistan airspace and see who's who, flying where, how many aircraft coming from that direction. Unless this was knocked out, PF would not have air superiority in the region because they will almost be watching and they'll be almost visible to the Indian defense. This was well thought out and they had been practicing for months that how will we knock out S-400. And as I said, it is the first time ever This Russian most potent, most famous, most successful, most sought after missile was hit by any country in the world. This is the first time ever PF has hit, and the world is still wondering. And many people that have been to USA and Canada, people ask me, how did you do that? And I tell them on the lighter note, I said, you and me are curious and the Indians are desperate. So let both of us be curious and let the Indians be desperate about it. What did they do about it?
Chishti Sahab, that really brings to the question now, how did Pakistan manage operational secrecy to strike deep without significant retaliation?
See, you have to pull the surprises on enemy, Dr. If you let the enemy know, they can prepare accordingly. The best part, and especially I'm talking about the PF, was that they kept their operational preparedness, their war plans, obviously their strategy absolutely secret. And I can tell you, there's even on the night of 10th, when they were obviously went in on the night of 7th, those pilots were kept in isolation. They did not go home just because they may give a talk, a word somebody may get and it might reach enemy. They were absolutely guarded. These were the assets, obviously, those who had to execute these things. And the best part, obviously, they had rehearsed so much that it was not a surprise for them, Dr. Sahab, on that day, alhamdulillah, because it was natural for them. I was invited to a PF base a few months back, in which the Indus Shield exercise were taking place, in which 26 countries were participating, and I was invited to just witness. I sat in one of the briefings, and the briefing was going on in which the pilots were saying that about 70 aircraft will come from this side and about 35 to 40 aircraft will come from the other side, and we're going to crisscross and fight beyond visual range missile. I could visualize that this they had been doing since last year, then I saw, and even before. So it was not unusual for them. I believe that Indian had not calculated such a lot of integration on Pakistan part and not done something to counter PF integration. And as I said, the kill picture or the multi-domain operation that the PF was taking against them. This was the disconnect between two air forces.
Khalid Sahab, India is a superpower. He is laced with nuclear weapons. Pakistan is a nuclear power. And our President Donald Trump, rightly intervened in this war. And he has been very vocal about this thing. To my knowledge, more than 30 times has spoken that he was instrumental in stopping the Indo-Pakistani war. And he largely expresses that he stopped it by telling that I will not do trade with both of you. India has been quiet about Trump's repeated claims. What do you think they are avoiding challenging the statement of President Donald Trump?
You see, Dr. Saab, India was aggressor in this case. They had created hype in the minds and hearts of the people. Obviously, 1.4 billion were obviously made to believe that we're going to teach lesson to Pakistan. This is obviously, I'm not saying that 1.4 billion people of India want war. Nobody wants war, both sides of the border, because this is almost 1.8 billion people. This is 22% of the world population. Unfortunately, we are so disintegrated. Let me take the SAARC countries. Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, these countries make 22% of the globe, but we do only 5% of the trade within ourselves. That's so unfortunate. India had created such a lot of hype in the minds of the people that people thought that victory is almost at the doorstep, which they never saw the victory coming. Rather they got embarrassment. And they felt insulted having lost the aircraft. And especially when the PF is saying that we lost 7+1, Indians are saying we don't tell you how much we lost ourselves. We will not tell you how much we shot down the enemy aircraft. What is it? You also know it. So Indians cannot face their people now because it was a political motivated agenda. And I always tend to tell my audience and submit to them that you have to have, Dr. Saab, the cause justified to fight justified war. If your cause is not justified, your war will not be justified. And if your war will not be justified, the performance of your armed forces will not be justified. This is exactly what happened in Indian side. Their cause was war and performance. All were not justified. Look at the Pakistan side. Pakistan, because we were fighting for defense, we were fighting for sovereignty, we were fighting for our coming generations, our cause was justified, our war was justified, and so was, alhamdulillah, our performance justified.
Commodore Chishti Saab, it's well known that President Trump was in Canada in G7 and he cut short his visit and came to Washington, D.C. and he invited Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir for a lunch. What does that signals about USA-Pakistan military relation post-war?
Dr. Saab, I always believe that victory has a value in simple terms. Victory gives you value. The world realized here is a power which cannot be bullied, which will go all out to defend itself. Number two, please, we should all remember that power talks to power. Power never talks to weak. It's always, if you are, God forbid, you will agree with me, you spent so many years in the United States. God forbid, had we lost the war, had we been severely beaten by India, God forbid, would ever the American president call anybody from Pakistan? No. That's what I'm saying, that when you add when you achieve victory, obviously you add value to yourself. You become more relevant. India wanted Pakistan to be irrelevant, obviously. They thought that Pakistan facing economic crisis, a polarized population, probably this is the ideal time to teach a lesson to Pakistan and obviously put it on defense. But what resolve Pakistan came back with, probably it was a new surprise, not only for the West, the American president, and obviously globally, we regained our respect, we became relevant. And from the Air Force perspective, I can tell you there are numerous Air Forces who were trying to approach Pakistan Air Force to give them training, to share technology, to brief them about the tactics, invite them for visits to their bases. But what I'm trying to say, would they ever do it? Had we suffered more losses than the Indians? So that's the position the Pakistani people have earned. And through Pakistani people, the armed forces and particularly Pakistani Air Force has earned the place. Alhamdulillah.
Does this victory changes the long-term military balance between India and Pakistan?
Dr. Saab, you have to continue to earn your survival every day, I believe. The one victory does not assure you that you are now 10 years or 20 years or 50 years you're secure. You have to keep doing to defend yourself, to show resolve, to have the capability and prepare the armed forces accordingly to you. But we do not in Pakistan have any hegemonic design. We do not want to capture any area. We do not want to have the bullying position in the region. We do not want to have over-influential position in the region. We want to have a respectable neighborhood all around. We want our sovereignty to be respected by others as we would do it for of the sovereignty of the others. So what take home for this is we need to remember that one episode, one conflict does not assure you peace or continued respect and relevance in the world. We have to continue to work economically, very important. We have to reduce the polarization amongst the people of the country. We have to stabilize, provide better governance. And obviously, when this will all be better, the capabilities of the armed forces will improve further. And we continue to deter the enemy because we do not have any aggressive design against India. We need to deter them. And this deterrence obviously failed. That's why we went into war or a conflict, and the result is a history.
Because of that, what do you think is the biggest lessons Pakistani armed forces should take from this victory for future?
Continued the preparation. I think that's one line lesson because I visited Cyber Command 4, Dr. Saab, just as I said before coming. And when I asked them, how did you do this and this is, and believe you me, the officer commanding, the top man there said, sir, we moved on. We are preparing for the next one. That this is the mindset they have. They do not glorify. They are not looking back and saying, look, we won this. Look, we are the history. We are part of the history. No. They say, we've moved on. We are talking about the next tactics. We are not talking about the next strategy. We are collecting new data and we're working on the new strategies. That's how you continue to stay relevant and obviously deter the enemy.
Obviously, the both sides know how this war has gone. And a question comes that how do you see cyber warfare and electronic disruption shaping the next decade for India and Pakistan conflicts?
Dr. Saab, I believe that as without the air power, the future wars will not be possible to. You may be able to fight a war, you can start a war, but you can never win a war without air power in the coming years. The nature, the complex, and the methodology of the war has changed so drastically because the air power has become so important. It could be air-to-surface missiles, weapons, the aircraft, the drones, unmanned aerial vehicles. Every platform that you see is the air. I'm not saying that ground land forces or the naval forces are irrelevant. What I'm trying to say that the air power by nature has few advantages. Let me count them. Number one, the air power has an initiative. Shortest possible notice, it can respond back to the enemy hit into the capital. Number one. Number two is the flexibility. You may hit this target, you may hit that target. It takes few minutes to switch the target. For the land or the naval force, that's not possible. Number three, surprise. It can surprise the enemy by reaching over their head when they hear the jet sounds. And number four is shock factor. The enemy goes into shock, may it be the civil population, the military, or the political leadership, when they find the jets reaching them or over their heads and bombing. And fifth, and the most important thing, is that the air power now is able to create an environment for or against your land forces and naval forces. On 7th morning, when we shot down 7 aeroplanes of India, please ask the morale of Pakistan Army soldiers or the sailors. It'll be skyrocketed. And look at the Indian side. What should be their morale? This is how the air power changes in favor or against the morale of the people, the political leadership, and the armed forces. So I think this is an ongoing thing. The cyber command, integration, airborne early warning, jammers, refueling, satellite picture, space knowledge, everything is going to play more and more important role in the coming future instead of their role coming down.
Commodore Khalid Sahab, this 4 days war between India and Pakistan, could you, because of your extensive experience being in war strategy, do you think the entire concept of war between countries have changed?
Dr. Saab, changed not altogether, but the composition has probably changed. That means, as I said, the air power role has been very, very predominant. You see, Israel and Iran war. Where were the land forces? Where were the naval forces? Hardly any. You only heard and saw missiles, aircraft, bombs falling from the medium of air. That only was created. How did the America flew all the way to neutralize Iranian nuclear plants? Through the air. They did not fire. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the land or the naval forces. What I'm trying to tell you, because of the nature of the air power, it has a reach, it has flexibility, it has surprise, and it can create an environment for you. And they can do it very quickly. That's the point to be remembered. So that's a new complexity of the war fighting, and the air power has to and will play a very predominant role in any combat in the future, anywhere globally.
That's a fair question. You are a military historian. I want to ask you, how would this war be remembered as Pakistan's strategic history? You being a long-term knowledge of the history of wars, kindly share with our viewers the importance of remembering in history this war.
Dr. Saab, I'll quickly, as I said, I'm very fond of a student of history. The previous wars were fought when you saw that few aircraft went in from here and the other came from there. They had a dogfight, engaged each other, visually saw each other, outmaneuvered and outsmarted each other, and they shot down, and they reported back how many aircraft shot down. This is unique aircraft. Please visualize 12:10 a.m. past midnight when you cannot see 1 kilometer. The aircraft are being shot at 200 kilometers. When you're not seeing the enemy, we're just watching on the digital. And we as fighter pilot, let me tell you, I do not hate what is in front of me, but I love what I left behind on the ground. I'm not out to kill people, but obviously in the line of duty, when they threaten the life of my people, obviously I do anything. So this is the new complexity in which past midnight, 200 kilometer, almost 180 to 200 kilometers, the enemy is being targeted. People are not even looking at each other. They are only looking through the scope, the radar scope. And please remember that scopes that I saw, they were so cluttered. When you have 125 aircraft on a small LCD kind of display, you got to decipher, you have to evaluate, you have to prioritize, you have to focus, you have to log, and you got to shoot. It is a very, very challenging situation. But hats off to the training of the PF pilots and the crew. They did such a wonderful job.
Well, we're going to thank Air Commodore Chishti Sahab for giving us an in-depth analysis of not just the battlefield victories, but the modern day element of cyber warfare, prescient targeting, and a high-level diplomacy, and combined to make this a defensive movement and a decisive movement in the history of military. Chishti Saab, if you have any last word for our viewers to say, because of your extensive experience, your love for Pakistan, and your long decorated history for serving as Pakistan Air Force.
Dr. Saab, my tribute and salute to Pakistanis who are settled abroad. This is the first time after the war I have left the country and flown into Canada and America. I have visited a number of cities where I was invited to talk on the subject, on the war, give interviews. I've been to Vancouver, Toronto, Seattle, now here in Houston. And believe you me, I feel so proud that Pakistanis living abroad are probably more patriot than us. Why? Because they're living so far away, they're more concerned about it, they have more love and affection, and they had such a lot of prayers and acknowledgement for overall Pakistani people, for the armed forces and particularly Air Force. Believe you me, wherever I went and I met people, the response was so overwhelming that I started to doubt that did I shoot those airplanes? They were so loving. The people were obviously more concerned. Wherever I go for a dinner or a breakfast with some Pakistani community in America here or in Canada, they absolutely are full of prayers. And that is heart-touching. And I must compliment you all who are living abroad, that salute to your passion, salute to your patriotism, and salute to the support that you're extending, either physically, monetarily, or through emotions or through prayers. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Chishti Saab, one thing I didn't touch on that. First of all, we were expatriate Pakistani. We are proud of our army. We are proud of our armed forces. We are proud of our Air Force. They are defending the Pakistan as any proud country, a sovereign country would do, doing their job. But deep down, we all root for Pakistan. Our recognition in this country and wherever we go is as a Pakistani. And as a patriot of Pakistani, we always wish Pakistan to flourish, defend itself, and keep the head high. But most of the time that we have been, as we grew at Pakistan and here, Pakistan has never had a strategy of being aggressive. Pakistan always has a defensive strategy. And I didn't ask you this question, that why Pakistan always keep a defensive posture policy in the armed forces.
You see, we do not have any hegemonic designs, let me tell you. We do not want to overpower our neighbors. We do not want to be more relevant to them. We do not want to bully around. You saw that. Let me tell you. As I said in the beginning, this region is the most disintegrated. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal. These are the countries a part of the SAARC. We do only 5% business, as I said. Because of which country? We are not doing business. We do all the 95% trade outside the world, but not within ourselves. Our children deserve better education, better hospital. Our future generation needs better environment and infrastructure. We do not give it. Why are we fighting? I've been giving interviews to the Indian channels here, and I spoke to them. India has to rise above this self-ego. It's like a sumo wrestler. If you are big in size, if you have more stamina, if you have more energy, that you cannot be right everywhere. You can be right in Bollywood, you can be right elsewhere, but you cannot, a sumo wrestler cannot say I'm good in the badminton also and I have to be the best in swimming also. You have to respect each other's sovereignty, and India should take initiative. I'm saying as a fighter pilot that India needs to take an initiative. Unless the India leaves that element of ego. I'm not saying all the population of 1.4 billion. I repeat, the political leadership, obviously, they have to come up beyond it for the sovereignty of each other's country, the population, their future, and almost 2 billion people living in the region. They have to obviously respect each other and start living like. Last word on from my side is the founding father, on which we all belong to, and I'm also part of you as in the Quaid-e-Azam Foundation USA. Quaid-e-Azam had said when he demanded in 1946 the independent homeland that we need an independent homeland, I will share the recording with you. And our founding father Quaid-e-Azam said that we need an independent homeland. We want to practice our religion and our values, and we would live like America and Canada. Look at it. This is an order for us. This is a policy. This is a strategy. This is foreign policy action that is given us, that India and Pakistan should live like America and Canada. Now, why can't we do this? It is not my strategy. This is an obligation on Pakistanis to listen to what our founding father had said. But we cannot follow it and implement it because obviously the designs on the other side of the border are the emotion, the feelings are not the same. And I invite them. Obviously, my voice is too humble, too small, but I still like to invite them. Let's live peacefully, look after the future of the generation, and have the better and prosperous future for almost 2 billion people of the region.
I want to give you the quote of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, father of the nation, and he said that no power on earth can undo Pakistan.
Inshallah.
And I am so proud of our forces that who have defended it to keep up the words with the father of the nation said. Chishti Sahab, I understand the military and military complex and military muscle is an important thing for any country. Tell us about the manufacturing of military and military equipment in Pakistan.
Dr. Sahab, Quaid-e-Azam unfortunately was ill in the last 13 months that he lived after the independence of Pakistan. But he chose to, or he could only visit only one military academy, and that was Pakistan Air Force Military Academy. That was schooled in those days. Then he raised it to college, and now it's in a full academy named Asghar Khan Academy. He visited that academy on 13th April 1948. And in his address, I'll quote his words. And then he said, a country, look at, he's not a military strategist, he's not a general, he's not an air marshal, he's not an admiral. Look at his vision. I quote, he said, a country without a strong air force is at the mercy of any aggressor. Pakistan must build up her air force as quickly as possible. It must be an efficient air force second to none. Unquote. Look at his vision. Wow. The importance of the Air Force. And another beautiful thing he said only through discipline and self-reliance, Pakistan Air Force can be worthy of Pakistan. This is an executive order to us, that discipline and self-reliance. What is self-reliance? The indigenous development. This is what we did. Dr. Saab, let me add, 192 countries are there on this globe. Yeah. There is no country other than the Pakistan which has developed its own fighter jet aircraft, which is JF-17 Thunder. All fighter jets are made by different manufacturing companies. They professionally do it. They do it as a business. They offer jets to the government, and obviously they're sold outside. This is the only air force on the globe which has developed its own jet fighter aircraft. Why? Because this was in the line of direction and orders of Quaid-e-Azam, that we have to be self-reliant. We should not be dependent on other countries. And uniquely, that aircraft has participated in this war. Almost 200 JF-17 Thunder took part. Quickly, let me also refresh your viewers that Indian Tejas aircraft, which they wanted to do it indigenously, was conceived in 1985. In 1995, 10 years after Tejas, PF conceived to have JF-17 Thunder. So in 40 years, Indians have had only 40 Tejas, which were never put into this war. They were flying close to Sri Lanka border. They never. On the other hand, Pakistan having thought of making own jet 10 years after them, 1995, in last 30 years, there were about 200 aircraft JF-17 Thunder participating on the PF in this combat. That's called this indigenous, that's called the self-reliance in the lines of directions of the Quaid-e-Azam.
Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah gave unity, faith and discipline. And to me, I always call me Jinnah the greatest statesman ever lived on the earth. On Quaid-e-Azam Foundation platform, we are committed to promote the legacy of father of the nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And we will lead on this note with thanking Chishti Saab, who is our patron chief of the Quaid-e-Azam Foundation USA, that we should say together, Quaid-e-Azam Zindabad, Pakistan Zindabad.